The Sound of No Hands Clapping by Toby Young. Narrated by Simon Vance. Copyright 2006 by Toby Young. This audiobook is published by arrangement with Toby Young and Fletcher & Parry LLC and was produced in the year 2006 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Prologue. October 9th, 2002. From the outside, the building I was in certainly didn't look like much. It was part of a cluster of prefab units that had been hastily erected in what was, to all intents and purposes, an industrial park. The interior was scarcely any more impressive. The wall opposite me was decorated with a collection of posters advertising various long-forgotten Hollywood blockbusters, and just in front of it there was a trestle table piled high with promotional bric-a-brac, pens, mugs, baseball caps. It could have been a distribution warehouse for a DVD mail-order company. Buy one, get one free. In fact, it was the global headquarters of blank blank, one of the most powerful producers in Hollywood. When I'd first met him earlier that year, he told me that, collectively, his films had made so much money that if you averaged it out, each one had grossed over $100 million. The films advertised on the posters opposite, some of which had grossed 3 times that much, had all been produced by him. The prefab units might not look particularly fancy, but no other producer occupied such prime real estate, at least not on this lot. And it wasn't, strictly speaking, an industrial park. It was one of the 8 major Hollywood studios. The reason I was there is because 3 months earlier this producer had been sitting on a billionaire's yacht in the south of France when he happened to find a copy of How to Lose Friends and Alienate People under a throw cushion. This was a book I'd written about trying and failing to take Manhattan. By the time the yacht docked in Antibes, he'd made a couple of calls on his cell phone and got my number. I was back in England, in my Skoda, heading to a wedding in Norfolk when I got the call. Skoda is a Czech company that makes cheap, unfashionable cars. As one joke has it, how do you double the value of a Skoda? Fill it up with gas. "Is this Toby Young?" Hang on a minute," I said, trying to wedge the phone between my ear and my shoulder. "I'm just overtaking a lorry." After the usual cacophony of hooting and swearing, no one, especially a truck, likes being passed by a Skoda, I was back on the line. "Sorry about that. I've been stuck behind that fucker for the last 20 minutes. "Is this Toby Young?" "Yes. Who's this?" "Blank blank." "Yeah, right. And I'm Hugh Grant." "No, really, it's me." "Langan? Is that you?" "It is, isn't it? You're going to have to work a lot harder on that American accent, my friend. You sound far too working class to be a Hollywood producer." "Listen, I don't have time for this. I'm going to give you the number of my production office in Los Angeles, and I want you to call that number and ask to speak to Lauren. That's my second assistant, and she'll patch you through to my cell." Beat. "Jesus Christ, I'm an idiot. Sorry about that. What can I do for you, Mr. Blank?" "Where are you right now?" I glanced out of the window. "Somewhere between Colchester and Ipswich, I think." "No, I mean, what country are you in?" "Duh." "England. I'm in England." "Can you meet me in the lobby of the Hotel de Cap on Monday at noon? If you can't get a flight, I might be able to arrange for a private jet to pick you up." I let out an involuntary bark of laughter. "A private jet? Are you sure this isn't a crank call?" 818-546. Okay, I believe you. What's this all about?" "I want you to write a picture for me." Beat. "I'm afraid you're going to have to give me that number after all. This is just too good to be true." After he'd hung up, I turned to my wife, who was sitting beside me in the passenger seat. "You'll never guess who that was." "Who?" "Blank fucking blank." "What did he want?" "He says he wants me to write a picture for him." "Are you sure it wasn't a crank call?" This was the summons I'd been waiting for, if not all my life, certainly for the past 2.5 years. Having failed as a glossy magazine editor in New York, I was determined to make it as a screenwriter. Since returning from America in 2000, I'd made numerous attempts to break into the movie business, but, not surprisingly, none of these efforts had come to anything. Now, thanks to an extraordinary stroke of good fortune, I was being given a chance to play in the big leagues. Perhaps I should have been more wary. After all, the annals of Hollywood are full of cautionary tales about young writers being lured to Los Angeles by the prospect of easy money, only to spend the next 40 years doing nothing. Ernest Hemingway said that a writer should come no closer to Hollywood than the Nevada-California state line, arrange to pick up his check at the border, and then turn round and head home. On the other hand, that check is nothing to sniff at. As one jaded screenwriter put it, they ruin your stories, they trample on your pride, they massacre your ideas. And what do you get for it? A fortune. It turned out the picture Blank wanted me to write was a biopic about a notorious 70s record producer. He had acquired the rights to this man's unofficial biography back in 1994 and already hired several other writers to have a crack at adapting it. The reason none of them had succeeded, at least not to Blank's satisfaction, is because this particular individual, like most legendary record producers, was a spectacularly unpleasant human being. He ripped off all his artists, drove a famous singer to suicide, and abandoned his only son. He had almost no redeeming qualities. On the face of it, it was simply impossible to tell his story in a way that wouldn't automatically alienate the audience. "I'm the first to admit it. He's not a likable guy," said Mr. Hollywood over lunch at the Hotel du Cap 48 hours after he'd first contacted me. "But if I'm going to make a movie about this guy's life, I have to find a way to make him sympathetic. When I read your book, I thought, if anyone can do it, this guy can. Because you did it. At the end of your book, I liked you. I don't know why I liked you, but I did. I mean, you do all this really dumb stuff, you fuck everything up, but when I got to the end, I liked you. That's why you're the perfect guy to write this picture. I mean, if you were able to make yourself likable, given all the horrible shit you pulled, you should be able to make this guy look like fucking Gandhi." When I got back to London, I immediately called Rob Long, the only person I know with any claims to being a Hollywood insider. I was introduced to him by William Cash, a fellow British journalist, on a trip to Los Angeles in 1992. Rob was only 27 at the time, but he was already an executive producer of Cheers, and I persuaded him to write a column about the difficulties of sustaining such a meteoric career for a magazine I was then editing. The columns were subsequently collected into a cult book, Conversations with My Agent, that quickly became required reading for anyone seeking to understand the business. Since then, Rob has gone on to have a very successful career as a sitcom producer, and at one stage served as an adjunct professor of screenwriting at the UCLA School of Film, Theatre and Television. Rob listened patiently while I offered my analysis of the situation. The problem was that no one had a clue about how to turn this misanthrope's life story into a commercial movie. Blank simply couldn't justify spending $64 million on it, the average cost of a Hollywood movie these days, when it so clearly wasn't going to be a hit. My job was to figure out a way to tell the story that, while remaining true to the source material, also rang bells at the box office. $64 million was the average cost of making a movie in 2004, according to the Motion Picture Association of America. Of this, $34 million is the average cost of marketing a film domestically. Blockbusters can cost even more to market, as much as $60 million domestically and $125 million worldwide. "Completely wrong," said Rob. "You let him worry about how to make it commercial. That's his job. He's the producer. He wants to make it commercial, easy. He puts a star in the picture. You don't have to worry about the picture being made. You should be worrying about your career as a writer. You want to come out of this with a great writing sample, something that's going to get you hired on other movies. You want my opinion? Turn it into a comedy." After I hung up, I racked my brains, but the only way I could think of to make the story funny was to include myself as a character. As I envisaged it, the Schlockmeister would be about this completely unknown writer who's summoned out of the blue by this big Hollywood producer and then saddled with this absurdly difficult writing assignment. The story of the record producer could then be told as a film within a film, focusing on one of the numerous episodes in which he plucked some completely unknown band from obscurity, promised them the earth, and then discarded them as soon as the next band came along, not even bothering to pay their travel expenses. The picture, which would switch back and forth between the A story and the B story, would begin with me receiving a phone call from blank blank as I was heading to a wedding in Norfolk. He doesn't want to make a film about you, said Rob when I told him this idea.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?